If you're the kind of tech-savvy person who's spent too many nights staring at a blinking rack, wondering whether the next piece of gear you buy will actually solve a problem or just add another cable to the chaos, this is exactly the place you're looking for. You don't want to waste money on a power strip that can't keep up with your servers, network switches, or storage array, and you need to know if the CyberPower PDU44007 switched ATS PDU is the kind of tool that will actually fit into your workflow rather than become a source of frustration. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The first thing I did when I started digging into this unit was to picture the environment it's meant for. Picture a small to medium data center, a home lab with a 2U rack, or even an office server closet where you have a mix of servers, a UPS, and a few network switches that all need reliable, monitored power. In those settings, you're constantly juggling load limits, trying to avoid tripping a breaker, and you want the ability to see exactly what's happening on each outlet without having to pull out a multimeter or stare at a wall-mounted panel. CyberPower's PDU44007 promises 19 outlets, a selectable color LCD, remote and local monitoring, and an ATS, automatic transfer switch, that can shift between input sources. The question is, does that promise translate into day-to-day convenience? Let's talk about the outlet configuration first, because that's where the practical rubber meets the road. On the rear you get 16 IECC 13 sockets, 2 IECC 19 sockets, and a single NEMA L630R. For most IT setups that means you can plug in standard server power cords, C13, a few higher draw devices like a small UPS or a high-performance switch, C19, and you have the L630R for a beefier input like a larger UPS or a dedicated PDU feed. The distribution is generous enough that you won't be forced to use bulky adapters or double up on a single outlet, which is a common hack that ends up stressing connectors over time. If you're running a lab with a handful of Dell PowerEdge or HP ProLiant servers, the C13 count alone will cover most of your needs, and the two C19 spots give you the flexibility to add a NetApp or a storage array without a scramble. What really sets the switched part of this PDU apart is the ability to control each outlet individually, either locally via the front panel or remotely through network management. The LCD panel is not just a static readout, you can cycle through voltage, current, and load percentages, and you can set thresholds that trigger alarms if an outlet starts drawing more than it should. In real-world terms, imagine you have a blade server that's been humming along fine for months and suddenly a firmware update causes a spike in power draw. With the PDU's remote monitoring, you get an email or SNMP trap before the breaker trips, giving you the chance to roll back the update or rebalance the load. That preemptive heads-up is the kind of value that most generic power strips can't match. On the flip side, there are a couple of practical trade-offs that you need to keep in mind. The unit is rated for 30A but is derated to 24A. That's a nuance you'll see in the spec sheet, but it matters when you're planning the total load on the rack. If you're feeding a collection of devices that together can pull close to 30A under peak conditions, you'll need to either limit the number of devices or ensure the upstream circuit can safely handle the continuous 24A draw. For many small setups it's fine, but larger environments that push the envelope of a single circuit could end up hitting that ceiling quickly. Another point is the physical form factor. This is a 2U rack mount device, so you need at least 2 rack units of vertical space and adequate ventilation. In a cramped cabinet, the heat from the LCD and the internal monitoring electronics can raise the ambient temperature a few degrees, which isn't a showstopper but is something to consider if your rack is already running hot. Who should buy this PDU? If you are a small business IT manager, a home lab enthusiast, or a freelance server administrator who needs to keep a handful of devices powered with real-time visibility, the CyberPower PDU44007 is a solid match. The ability to remotely monitor each outlet means you can script power cycles for devices that need a reboot after a crash, or you can schedule power-on times for equipment that only runs during business hours. The ATS function also adds a layer of resilience. In the event of a mains outage, the unit can automatically switch to a backup source without you having to manually flip a breaker. That kind of automated reliability is valuable even in a modest setup where downtime translates to lost client work. Conversely, if you're looking for a straightforward, cheap power strip for a single desktop PC or a printer, this unit is overkill. The price point reflects the monitoring hardware.